there's a lot going on in the dronosphere, the legalosphere in the drone world that you need to know about. Your official title is Grand Exalted Grand Poobah of what is it again?
Yeah, something like that.
Yes, tell people who you are.
I'm the Director of Regulatory Affairs for the Great Lakes Drone Company, and I am also a founding member of the Michigan Coalition of Drone Operators.
I don't want to panic everyone, but there is something horrible. Can we agree on that? There's something horrible in the air. Can we?
Yes.
Can we talk about the thing that cannot be talked about at all? Can we? Can we allude to? Can we? What can we give the people? Because this is horrible. This is horrible. Horrible.
Here's what I will offer up. Because we're seeing this already with manned aviation.
Yes.
So we know this is going to be spilling over into unmanned, or may have already spilled over into unmanned.
Oh, God.
And that's the case where you may have recalled there was a Southwest airliner that was landing in Chicago Midway, and a business jet crossed the runway directly in front of this landing passenger plane.
Mm-hmm.
When that took place, the newest FAA administrator, as well as President Donald Trump, came forward and offered up that pilots should lose their license for any mistake.
Like no warnings.
No warnings.
Like that's it.
Take action immediately. And that is a drastic action, right? To lose a license.
Is that just a suggestion?
That was not a suggestion. So this is one of those where it's a reminder, everybody, P's and Q's. And dot the I's, cross the T's, make sure you're in compliance. Look at all the things that you need to do. Take your checklists and really go through them.
Did someone involved in that near miss on the runway lose their pilot's license?
That was the news story, yes. There was a news story that happened.
That seems a bit drastic. No warnings, no, like you got a stellar record, and then they're just like, nah, fuck you, you're out.
And you're done. So, and you think with manned aviation, that's a real concern, because if your license is revoked, now you've got to go back through and get your number of hours, right? So
they get ready all your hours too?
You lose all that. So you're starting from scratch.
That
now,
happened?
With with remote pilot, that's the open question, right? If you have your Part 107 revoked, do you need to go back and take the test, or is it training again? How is that going to work? So that's something that's currently in discussion.
Oh no, Ryan.
Yeah.
No.
Your pilot's license should be yanked? Hell yes.
What can we do? How much money can we pour into your thing to keep this from happening? How many commas do I need to put in a donation?
Keep it coming. No,
keep it coming.
I think it's just, this is one of those good types of reminders that in a lot of ways, drones are very simple to operate. And we get so routine about it that we kind of go, oh, did I do that Lance request? Well, don't just ask yourself, probably have it written down. I need to do a Lance request and check it off. Or did I look at my prompts? Did I make sure that everything was on? There's some things in there that you want to consider. Flying at night. This was one that just came up here a while ago. And actually, I told some of the folks I would talk about this, right? If you're flying at night, do you need to fly with a strobe on?
Yeah. Do you?
Yes. If you are Part 107, you must have a strobe on, right?
Yeah.
If you are flying recreationally, do you need to have a strobe on?
Yeah.
You do?
Can I answer again?
Yeah.
No.
You don't?
Yeah, you do. Do you? Yes, of course you do. Yes.
So one of the interesting aspects is with a recreational user, you're flying under what's called 49 USC 44809, right? And so those regulations are passed by Congress, not by the FAA, and they did not have any specifics regarding lighting or flight over people. Interesting. So there is no regulation in 44809 that disallows you from flying without a strobe light. There's nothing that disallows you from flying over people.
This is for hobbyists only.
This is for hobbyists. So there's a difference between 107 and hobbyist, right? Or recreational flyer.
Right.
So now you start to get into, well, there's got to be something, and there is. So each and every recreational flyer must follow the safety guidelines of a community-based organization, CBO.
Right.
And your community-based organization has to be FAA approved. There are only 4 FAA approved CBOs. Each of those has some varying differences about flight over people, about flight at night. And you need to really look through and make sure that the one you are selecting, you're following their particular safety guidelines for those particular scenarios.
But they can have different guidelines?
They can have different guidelines.
So you can pick and choose what guidelines you want?
As long as you stay with one CBO for your flight, yes.
See, this is
So
where it's so subjective.
Yeah. Example, let's say you are going to fly with the AMA, right? The Academy of Model Aeronautics. They are the largest CBO in the world.
Mm-hmm.
They're FAA approved. They require that you are going to have a night, a strobe on for night operations, unless you are in a well-lit area, like a stadium. So if you're flying inside of a stadium, you got the big bright lights, they do allow that you don't have to have a night strobe on, right?
Yeah.
However, let's say you hand catch your drone, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. If you were flying with the AMA, you just violated their safety guidelines by hand catching your drone.
Oh, hell.
Because you are not able to touch an aircraft that's in flight. So anytime that you violate a safety guideline of your CBO, you are no longer protected under the 44809 rules. Instead, you are now shifted over to Part 107. So if you're a recreational flyer and you don't have your Part 107 and you failed on something back over here in your recreational CBO rules, you automatically are
in violation.
107 in violation. And as you just heard, they could come chasing after you with some revocation, right?
Now, you know as well as I do, now not to scare everybody, okay? Just to be clear, and I want to be very clear about this because I get asked this quite a bit. And I know there's a lot of people out there that email me all the time like, can I do that? They're asking me like, can I do this and that? And they want to comply. They want to fly responsibly with common sense. I will tell you that there is not an enforcement arm of the FAA or the FSDO. There just isn't. The only way that you get on their radar is if someone complains about you to them, and they have to investigate. That's still the way things are right now.
Correct. Yep. So either somebody's called the police and the police have come out and collected information that they're then going to forward over to the FSDO, or you have a Karen, right? We've seen that before.
I want to know who you are.
No.
Where they're going to make a complaint. They can either do so anonymously or they can do it direct to either the FAA HQ or they can go right to the FSDO. Either way. And by law, the FAA must investigate.
Right. So if
you're automatically on the radar.
If you're flying in a local jurisdiction and a Karen comes up. And the Karen's like, you can't fly here and all this, blah, 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 blah. And the police are called. And the police are like, well, to hell with you, Karen. He's not violating anything. That Karen can then go to the FSDO or the FAA and file a complaint, and they have to investigate, even though your local jurisdiction said, good to go.
Yep, absolutely.
It's so messed up.
Crazy piece, isn't it?
It's so messed up. So, you know, I know there's a lot of people watching that are very flippant about the rules. I mean, I myself don't do everything that I should. I admit that. I fly with common sense most of the time. Even the crazy things you see me do, I'm very careful about, believe it or not.
Here, hold this. Hold this and I'll catch it. Hold this.
Get it. Get it.
Hold this. Hold this.
I got it.
But there's a lot of people that are just like, you know, I would say that if you want to continue to fly your drone and be a good ambassador for the rest of us, don't draw attention to yourself in that way, and just be careful, because you could lose it. Today's climate, I don't know what it's going to be like tomorrow, next year, or whatever, but this kind of stuff, it is concerning. And unfortunately, I think you'd agree, Ryan, it's raising this scary bar for people that want to get into the hobby, you know, because they'll be like, oh, drones are cool, you know, they'll see somebody out flying and they'll be like, yeah, it's great, I think I'll get a drone. And then they're like, oh, but I got to do a trust test, and then I got to do all this, and then I could this, and then this could happen, and oh my God. And then they're like, screw it, I'll start knitting as a hobby. You know, I don't want that. I want it to be easy to get into this hobby.
Yeah, and to me, I guess I look at it as droning is supposed to be the gateway drug to being a manned pilot, right? So if you get this taste of, hey, I like this aerial stuff, then you might be going, you know what? I can get in the cockpit and I can get my pilot's license and I can actually fly. And of course, we know that you know, the number of airmen for manned aviation is way down. They're looking at recruiting left and right. Use this. This is your farm leagues, right?
You're talking about commercial pilots.
Go towards commercial pilots.
Yeah, absolutely.
General aviation is still down overall.
Yeah. And that's, you know, that's why it is important to get this information out to the young people, to the kids who will be the future Delta pilots of the world. That, you know, maybe a drone sparked their interest, like you said, in aviation, and they took it from there. But that's, you know, I think it's a gateway drug to adrenaline, personally. I have no intention of riding in a plane or flying one. I am content with the whole keep my feet on the ground and, you know, letting that lipo crash without me.
There you go.
Ryan is the go-to guy. You're almost a lawyer at this point, really.
Almost.
I mean,
I just have a few more years of law school to go to, like all of them.
Yes, well, I mean, but you're the go-to guy. If anybody's in trouble or has an issue with any kind of drone legality stuff, I mean, heck, sometimes I call you, I'm like, hey, can I fly in the Grand Canyon? You're like, eh. So please do try to help him out, because as he is independently wealthy, he could also use your donations. And here's where you can do that. There's a link in the description, and help him help you. So, Ryan, what's new? What do we need to worry about?
Some very interesting news out of Florida lately. I talked to one of the pilots there. The Villages, which are kind of well-known area in Florida where all the retirees are going to,
yes,
is doing an awful lot of construction these days, right?
Yeah.
And so there are a number of pilots that like to fly over and see what kind of construction's happening. And
sure.
Kind of get a lay of the land. And they've been doing that for quite a while now and posting their videos on YouTube. And yeah, that might get some attention of folks who are in the area, or maybe who are looking at moving into the Villages. In fact, one of the guys that I was talking to, who's the operator, he actually lives in the Villages. So he's kind of taking pictures of the coming neighborhood, right?
Yeah, of course.
New construction in the neighborhood.
Yeah, who wouldn't want to do that?
Instead, what he got was a cease and desist letter right? The lawyers for the villages sent him a cease and desist letter and said, we no longer are allowing you to fly over our property. We believe that in doing so, you are surveilling us, and you are in violation of Florida state law 934.50.
And what does 934.50 say?
934.50 is talking about surveillance, typically by police, right? Entities that would otherwise need a warrant to constantly look at something. But yeah, interesting enough, they were trying to suggest that folks were breaking state law by looking at the properties of the villages from the air, and trying to use that cease and desist letter to suggest that they were committing a crime.
Oh, God.
Now, here's an interesting piece, right?
Yeah.
If your attorney were to send me a letter of cease and desist to say I'm violating a Michigan state law, could you and your attorney do anything about it? No, because you're not the Michigan State Police or the right. So this is a state law. It'd be a violation that the authorities would have to do. So what they're really doing is they're setting stuff up to say, oh, well, we're ready to trespass you. Now, when we're talking about trespass, we're talking about land use jurisdiction in the case of the villages. And of course, there's no issue there because these guys are parked in the right of way outside the property of the villages. And the only incursion, if you will, is in the airspace. And of course, airspace is public domain. So the use of that law is not really accurate. But trying to scare these guys off to say, please cease and desist, or we'll use this against you, right?
Is this the kind of thing? Because anytime I hear something like this, it always concerns me because, as you say all the time, it's all about precedent.
Exactly.
Good and bad. So if a jurisdiction does this and gets away with it, then other jurisdictions will be like, well, it worked for them. Let's try that. And then before you know it, we're screwed.
And that's the thing. It's like setting up dominoes, right?
Mm-hmm.
So one domino gets set. Oh, it didn't fall over. I can put up another domino. I can put up another one. And yeah, you can create an elaborate domino structure. But then when one falls, there's a good chance all the rest are falling too. But yeah, I think the concern is that, yes, somebody is stepping up to say, we're going to try this out. We might try to get aerial trespass on you. And if that were to stick, then places around the country are going to do the exact same thing. Then you have the cost of, hey, let's fight this in court.
Right.
Let's get a precedent the other direction and knock all the dominoes down. Well, there's money involved in that. There's time involved in that. So it's much easier to just nip
roll
it in
over.
the bud.
Well, yeah. I mean, is this guy doing that? Is this guy going to fight it, or is he just not going to fly his drone anymore?
Well, yeah. So one of the more interesting aspects of this story is that the timing of this letter comes out just days after the villages came through with their own newspaper, where they hired their own drone operator to do the very same exact thing. Take pictures of the construction from an aerial perspective, post those out, and use those as their newsletter or their sales flyer. So here what you've got is kind of that interesting, hey, we're pushing you out because we've got our own, and we don't want our own to be overlooked because you have this YouTube channel over here.
Right. You know, the Villages is a ginormous corporation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Aren't they $1 billion company?
I would suspect it. Yeah.
Yeah. And they're growing all the time. So they're getting stronger. They're getting better lawyers. But I would think that they have, better things to worry about than whether or not one of their own residents is flying their drone around. Don't they have herpes running rampant there among the residents? Worry about that. Hey, take care of the herpes, then go after the drones. That's my suggestion.
Well,
Yeah. So up next, I guess there's something going on in Iowa.
so yeah, Iowa, last year, the Iowa legislature was moving towards passing a preemption bill, which would have been fabulous for drone operators. Well, at the last minute, 11th hour, they changed course and they made it illegal to fly over a farm.
Can you
Right. And
can you explain preemption to people who don't
yeah,
know?
so in state preemption, Michigan is a state preemptive state where they have a state law that expressly disallows local governments from creating or enforcing their own drone ordinances. So what the state is doing is it's taking away the land use jurisdiction from local governments and saying, look, you cannot disallow somebody from launching, landing, or operating a drone in your vicinity. And then, of course, we all know federal preemption applies to airspace because the FAA has sole jurisdiction over airspace. So there's the two different preemptions, federal airspace, and then some states, 17 states total right now, have state preemption that is looking at the land use jurisdiction of drones.
So
Part 108's coming, but yes.
Is it coming? When? Not to get sidelined.
Not to get sidelined.
Yeah.
But yeah, Part 108 is coming. It was supposed to have come within 6 months of them passing the initial act. That was more than 6 months ago. The FAA is terrible at hitting deadlines. Just a case in point, Part 107 came out when?
Yeah.
August of
2016.
2016, right?
Yeah.
It was requested to come out in the 2012 FMRA within 18 months.
I know. I had my Part 333 ready to go.
Right.
And then they're like, nah, it's a different thing now. I was like, oh, the son of a... Yeah. But yeah, so Part 108, is that going to be an extra, like a little testy test that we can take, or like night flight, or what?
Yeah, so the details on it are still quite fluid. To me, what I'm reading is it's going to be corporate. So if you are Walmart doing deliveries, then Part 108 is going to come into play. But if you are Joe Schmo, drone services, Podunk, Iowa.
Well, what about
Ken
Corp? What about Ken Corp Limited?
Yeah. How many employees you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll update you about Part 108
once it comes.
But back to Iowa.
Yeah.
Wow.
So Iowa last year, they were going to pass the preemption. They changed at the 11th hour and they went completely opposite. They said, look, we are going to disallow flights where you are surveilling farm property, you are flying over property, or you're flying over livestock. So no longer with the FAA, right? You cannot fly over people. Well, now Iowa is saying you cannot fly over a cow, a pig, a horse, a llama, a chicken.
That makes common sense. I mean, I wouldn't do such a thing.
You wouldn't?
No, I wouldn't. I live in farm country out here, and I wouldn't.
Hey, Delta Airlines, you need to reroute.
I know.
Cattle there.
I know. I know. But
yeah, so it was very interesting. Well, now they've doubled down, right? So now what they're saying is not only are we disallowing that, but we're going to create a buffer zone around a farm. So you cannot even launch, land, or operate from, or be up to 400 feet in the air, 400 feet distance from that property line. So, Ken,
yeah,
you live right next to a farm.
Yeah,
in Iowa.
Sure.
So you go out to your backyard and you want to go fly.
Right.
But your backyard, that border, right, that property line is within 400 feet. You cannot fly, even though it's your property, because you would be in violation of the new law.
But this is land use that they're trying to,
they're looking at it as both land use and airspace use.
Oh, that's
It's crazy. Yeah.
Semantics.
So literally they're
At
saying
best.
if you're within 400 feet of the border of a farm, you cannot launch, land, operate from, or fly over that area.
Is this isn't in place yet, is it?
It is quickly headed towards passage and will get signed by the governor.
So it will happen?
Well, I'm certain of it.
And is this this is bad precedent?
This is terrible. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, what can we do? What can we do as Joe Schmo drone services to keep this from being dominoed?
Having attempted to work with the Iowa legislature in the last session, I can pretty confidently say that there's not an ability to have your voice be heard and recognized, and that's a real problem. So I do think the only route in this case is going to be going to court, seeking to enjoin that law from ever taking place.
And this is what you're doing. This is the kind of thing that you're
exactly
doing.
What we do in Michigan.
With your help, people.
Correct.
Help him help you. He's doing this. This is what he does for fun. Is this fun for you to go to court?
Is very fun.
Okay. Well, if it's fun
and
for you.
And we have a 100% track record so far.
Oh, that is really good. Now, this whole Iowa thing, aren't they kind of stepping on the toes of the FAA? How does the FAA feel about this?
And that's probably what's really terrifying of this is that the FAA is not getting involved at all. Right? They issue their edict. I wouldn't even say edict. Their recommendation that local governments refrain and state governments refrain from creating their own drone ordinances, and they make the argument that doing so actually endangers the national airspace rather than protects it. They've constantly reiterated, we do not want a patchwork quilt of regulation.
Right.
And yet, here's Iowa saying, "Oh, we'll do it."
Is it?
And here's all these little localities that do it, and the FAA is kind of turned
a blind eye.
Blind eye to it.
Is it just because they're overwhelmed and underfunded, or? I mean, because if I lived in Iowa, I could buy a cow, put it in my yard, and create a TFR over my place, right?
There you go.
Don't fly over my cow.
Chickens are cheaper.
Yeah. Bessie will get upset.
Yeah. What's the poem? The fences make good neighbors, kind of to an extreme. You don't just have a fence. Well, we're going to put an invisible boundary 400 feet over onto your side of the property.
When this goes into effect, are there enough people on the hobby's side to fight it? To retract it or anything? Or are we just going to live with this?
Yeah. So this last time through, when we were dealing with the legislature, there were probably only 7 or 8 Part 107 operators who were involved. Those numbers have to climb dramatically, as well as bring in recreational flyers. You really need an organization like the MCDO where you have a membership that is involved. They're going to go and sit in the court hearings. They're going to testify in front of the judges, and they're going to put forward some money, right? Some donations to make sure that competent lawyers can get in front of the courts and make the argument known. And like I said, with MCDO, right now we've got a 100% track record.
Boom.
And it's because we've got Dean Greenblatt, who's just a phenomenal attorney. And then we've got a membership that really has put their heads together and committed to being there and to pushing forward with state law, understanding that this is the importance of the hobby, the industry, and the state of Michigan.
Yeah. And it's, you're in Michigan, but you've set a lot of precedent, a lot of good precedent in Michigan. And we appreciate that. So I'm going to try not to think about Iowa.
Good luck with that.
Thank you. Is there any good news that we can talk about, report? Is there anything that gives us hope?
Wow. There is good news.
Okay.
Fantastic news.
Please tell us.
sticking along the lines of state preemption,
Uh-huh.
South Dakota is another state, one of the 17, that has that preemption law that disallows local governments from creating or enforcing their own drone ordinances. There are 2 cities within the state of South Dakota that had created their own regulations regarding drones. One was Aberdeen, and the other was Deadwood. I reached out to both communities earlier this year. I want to say it was January, and we've already got a response from Deadwood. Deadwood took it over to their corporate council. They looked at it and they said, "You're absolutely right. We need to repeal this ordinance." And so they've taken the steps to remove their ordinance that was disallowing drones in the downtown area and in their parks. So folks in Deadwood or who travel to Deadwood, I honestly think we have a lot of folks that do drone tourism. They'll go to different places specifically because they can fly there. Now this opens that up for them.
Are they doing it to encourage tourism, or are they, and because
in
it's
this case,
the right?
I think they're doing it because they know that they're on the wrong side of the law.
Okay, I was going to ask you if it's the right thing to do, or is it the easy thing for them to do? Because very often they'll go easy, even if it's wrong.
Yeah, I think in this case they looked at it and said, "Yeah, we understand that this is in violation of the state law." And anytime that you're reaching out to a government entity and letting them know, "Hey, this is a problem. You really need to look at appealing it," I think their minds are turning. Hey, we might have to spend taxpayer dollars to defend this in court. And if it's obvious we're going to lose, we're going to spend that taxpayer dollars for nothing. It's a waste of taxpayer money. And I think that's a lot of why these communities go, you know what? We are going to repeal this.
Right. That's very foresighted of them.
Yeah.
To do that according to what is written in their own state law. How similar are other states' laws that they would be encouraged to do the same thing?
Very much. So, Pennsylvania, Florida, New Jersey, Illinois, I can rattle off quite a few. And in all those cases, I've gone to each of those states and said to their local governments, "Hey, you have these problems where you've created enforcement against drone operators that needs to be pulled from the books." And we've had great success in those communities going, "You're right, we're going to pull these laws and repeal them."
Well, this has been a lot of information. And again, thank you so much for your time, Ryan. I'm going to put links to all of your stuff. Ryan has an email. I imagine after every time we do one of these videos that there are some people that reach out to you like, "Oh, I didn't know you were even a resource." So there's a link to his email in the description and a link here to this free funder site for the MCDO legal fund. And we need to get that to increase. But
yes, please help out in any way you can. Small donations are just as good as large donations when they come in bunches, right?
Yeah.
So I appreciate everything. And then, people do reach out. I'm welcome to that, right? You've encountered something, you need some information about the laws, you have information about the upcoming legislation. I want to know, I want to help.
Yep. You're a good man. I'm glad you're here for us.
Thank you.
Keep on flying and having fun out there. That's what it's all about. Until next time,
bye.
I'm Ken Heron. Does your drone flying look like this? Then you need RemotePilot101.com. Link in the description.